So I'm going to call to order the October 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Board of Library Trustees. So welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out on the SD meeting. I think this was the last meeting was also on the SD. First item is to approve the minutes of our September 24th meeting. Everybody have a chance to look at them?
Very thorough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very thorough.
Thank you.
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Next was the monthly report of the library director about her activities during the month of September. Once again, a very busy month for Ellen.
Yeah, we've got to find something to keep her busy in her off hours.
Might be a good time for me to mention why I started doing a monthly report in this manner. I felt it was an efficient way to provide you with information about meetings, about people I've been interacting with, about tasks that have been focused on, just so that, an easy way to do it without covering it at each meeting.
Right.
So that's kind of the intent.
It is.
That I think might be something you want.
Very efficient. Continue doing. Yes.
I'm always impressed with the breadth of activities involved in that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's a real variety.
It's a great career.
Yeah. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the monthly report?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. So now we're on to financial and legislature, and we'll start with the 2020 year-to-date.
Nothing unusual to report, other than you might note that under the second category down, you'll see that the salary and wage full-time shows an over expenditure of $29,000. I believe that's related to the increases that were implemented as part of the compensation and classification study. That, not that money has all been spent, but that the encumbrance, the $195,565, includes what was budgeted for this year, as well as some increases related to that compensation and classification study. And I think that they grouped it all in that one section, but it might be dispersed over other categories in the future. I think they were beginning to get a handle on that, and I'll talk more about that later when we get there under personnel, I think. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But there's nothing else that's really unusual in the
Looks like
report.
everything was right on track.
Yeah.
Same with the trust funds.
Yeah.
The newest thing seems to be this capital budget request, and you're starting to get that ready.
Right, we have started the process for the capital budget. That's the first item that the town manager's office seeks in the development of the budget process. We have been talking about the plans in this capital plan for probably 3 or 4 years since we came into this building, that at about 4 years out, when the warranties on all of our computers expired, we would start an upgrade plan. And so that kicks into gear this coming fiscal year. So as you can see, we have proposed 36 computers, and that we are proposing that we would do the same kind of ratio in fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 23, and then continue on as we go, depending on how the public computers are standing up. So we're 4 or 5 years out by the time these would come on board. The town manager has spoken to me about the idea that he might want some of this in the operating budget. He's at this point, he said, just put it in both for now. And then as the budget process develops, he'd make a decision on that. I did caution him that if we put it in the operating budget, it would have a considerable impact on a materials expenditure requirements, so we'd want to look at that number carefully. So for now, this is just the first piece of the budget they require, and the whole request is in there. That may change as we move forward through the full budget process with the town manager review and so forth.
Yeah, it's clear it's making a lot of changes in the way that the budget is structured.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was on the finance committee, they always had the 5-year capital plan, and they'd turn over a third this year, third. But it was easy to get kind of struck from the capital budget, depending
Right.
on what the other needs in town.
Right,
Is
exactly,
his
to get
thinking-
pushed off the list,
Yeah,
yes, right.
yeah.
Also, talking about general differences, he is implementing the use of a new software this year for the budget process, not for the capital budget, that's pretty basic, but for the operating budget. So we'll be, Priya and I and our account clerk will be attending some training on it. Clearview is the name of the
Was
software.
the old one Munis?
Yeah,
okay.
they're still using Munis, but Clearview apparently will allow better tracking and more detail on the budget. So we'll be learning about that, and we'll be submitting the operating budget request in that format. At this stage, the town has always done the capital budget first, and then later, a month or two later, they come back with seeking the operating budget request. So this is actually due either tomorrow or Thursday, I think. So I would need a vote on the capital budget tonight to submit to the town manager.
Okay, and you even had a quote there from some companies in zones.
Right,
I guess, yeah.
yes. This is, I'll point out, this is a proposal off of the Mass Higher Education Cooperative purchasing pool that we use to comply with the state's procurement laws and also have considerable value for the purchases.
I noticed that the manufacturer's part number for those two line entries are the same.
Right.
But yet one is
One is the monitor.
$1,000 and one is $210.
Right, they're the companion piece. One is the monitor and one is the CPU, and it's actually a all-in-one system. And we really spent a lot of time, Ariel and Mike spent a lot of time looking at assessing the physical lay or makeup of these units, because our public stations get so much use and are really, not that they're roughly handled, but they're just handled so much that,
So differently
things,
from one
things
person's
become
work.
unseated and they're constantly working on them. So they were really looking for something that would be a little bit more sturdy, be able to stand up to, but also have a small footprint for all those stations. Now, some of these would also be used in staff areas as well. We'll be making the decision as we move along, as kind of assessing where each unit is and deciding which one we'll be replacing. But probably the predominance of the request would go to public side, because they're the ones that get the most.
Right. How are the computers holding up in the children's area?
Children's room, well, we have a couple types that are the awe stations
Yeah.
that are kind of self-enclosed. Those
Yeah.
are really, we've recently called them indestructible, and I said we should be careful about describing anything like that, but they really are good. Our other stations, we have the same kind of thing. We just
Yeah,
need,
yeah.
when people are turning screens all the time,
Yeah.
even that simple thing, where
Yeah.
they're the all-in-ones now, so any of the turning kind of gives jostling inside, so
Yeah.
I would say they're not any worse for the wear than the adult stations.
Okay, good.
The adult stations get tremendous use though, just tremendous amount of use.
What's the lifetime on the children's stations? Do we know?
Same as, the awe station, the awe
Yeah.
stations are beyond their life cycle, but they're heavily used. And they don't have the same demand for current software and current, functionality. The software they use is pretty standard, doesn't change a great deal. We're looking at the same kind of station for downstairs as upstairs.
They can stand up to a 3, 4, 5-year-old.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
They're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but when you think about it, they're all throughout the building, teen room, in the little cubby holes, where we have some individual express stations, those kind of things, so. So this, even though I'm seeking
So
a vote.
can we get a motion to go ahead and put it on to the capital budget? Is that what we want here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this might, as we go through the operating budget request, my plan is to put the full amount in operating, talk with the town manager, and then we'll see how he wants it modified. So
So-
you'll see a repeat request.
Yeah, and if he decides to keep it in the operating budget, means that every year we're gonna need sort of a similar amount added to the operating budget.
For,
computer
that's correct,
replacement.
right.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards, and I have to understand his reasoning, but I'm leaning towards the idea of having a small amount in operating to deal with, having a regular amount each year to deal with problems we might have with a few stations, but then having a larger scale implementation of upgrades through the capital budget. So, kind of a mix is what I think might be helpful, but I need to understand what his goals are with it, so.
Okay. So let's go on to the 2021 action plan.
And so I'm gonna defer to Priya. Priya and all the management staff took over this activity. I had asked Priya to take this on because I will not be here for the implementation, so it's really important that Priya and the managers, agree that this is the appropriate action plans.
Thank you, Ellen. As Ellen mentioned, the managers and I had a brainstorming session on September 19th. We added progress notes to the current fiscal year 2020 action plan, and then we discussed what goals we wanted to retain in the next 2021 action plan, the goals and objectives that we wanted to add, and what actions we could undertake to achieve those objectives. So then the managers went back to their respective teams and got additional feedback from their team members. I got input from my team, that is the reference librarian, the young adult librarian, the electronic resources librarian, and the technology specialist. Then we had another meeting, and I drafted the plan incorporating the feedback that we had received, and then I went over it with Ellen. So, as you know, the service priorities had been finalized when we created our strategic plan, and we had identified a number of goals for each service priority. So some of the goals from the current plan, the 2020 plan, have been retained in this because they are ongoing actions, and some are new goals. So the first service priority is celebrate diversity, cultural awareness. And the first goal 1A, is retained from the current plan. It's the same as that. Just rephrased some of the words in the actions that we would be doing, but mainly the goal is the same, the objective is the same. Goal 1B is a new goal, broaden programming and collection resources beyond ethnic diversity. Build resources to support other minority groups. So this was one of the goals that had been identified in the strategic plan, so we included that in this action plan.
Priya, if I can ask, what does ASL stand for?
American Sign Language.
Oh, okay.
And there's a third goal that's also been added, which is new, Goal 1C. Encourage community dialogue on topics of diversity, culture, politics, and town priorities. And offer 3 community engagement programs each year on a cultural or diversity topic, on a relevant current topic each year. Host a health fair or how-to fair with community members playing an active role.
And we did that this year, didn't you?
We did,
How was
yes.
it a good success?
Which one?
The health fair.
Health
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
We've actually done 3 health fairs this year.
Okay.
3 quarters, yeah. So that has.
And it's been very successful?
It
welcomed
has
by
been
the community?
successful. I mean, it's a drop-in, and people walk in and out, so they stop by the stations that they're interested in gathering more information. So, but the people who participated in it are, I think, even more eager than the people who drop in, because they want to, showcase their expertise.
Right.
Yes. Under service priority 2, ensure that library programs and services are advertised broadly. That's the same. The first objective, objective B, is the same as the current plan. expand program advertising. I mean, we, as you know, we advertise in through various formats, on social media, digital display, print, online, etc. So we'll continue to do that. The next goal, this is also same as the current action plan, create a central source for new residents to find information about the town. So we've, as you know, that we've already created a town information team, some staff members from various departments, and we've identified 2 areas that patrons have been asking questions about. One is children's services area, services in addition to what we offer at the library, you know, about babysitting or daycare facilities and stuff like that. And the other one is ESL programs. So we are putting together that information. This team is working on that, and we will then have it online and probably print. We're not sure whether we're going to do both, but we'll probably have, we'll definitely have one online. And then we have to constantly update it. So the next action plan, it says continually update town information online. Ensure the online links and contact information are current, maintain and update resources, etc. So if we have created the online links, then we just update it and maintain it.
I had a question. Who maintains our webpage? Do we do this here, or does it have to go central to town hall?
We do that here through Priya's staff.
You got a number of people who...
It's predominantly Mike Zeller,
Yeah.
but we have other staff members who can contribute. So Priya, myself, our technology specialists, our head of children's services, a children's librarian, reference librarian. So that it's pretty spread. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Mike does most of it, especially some of the more complex elements that we struggle with.
I've edited enough pages to know how
Yes.
troublesome this
Yeah.
can be. And it's
Very
a
Right.
continual race to keep
Right.
up.
And this is a content management system that's designed for municipalities, so it simplifies some things, but it also makes some steps more cumbersome
Yeah.
to get to accomplish what you want on that site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be familiar with that code.
Yes, yes, in the end, yeah.
Yeah. Objective B is the same as what is in the current plan. The next service priority is stimulate the imagination, reading, viewing, and listening for pleasure. First goal is to improve collections for the public and make it easier for patrons to find items they are seeking. At the last meeting, I guess Ellen mentioned that we've done reviewed the collection development plan and policy. And so we will be reviewing it every year. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. So that is in our goal here.
And how big's the team? When you take out the managers?
The acquisitions team and managers, about 8.
Yeah, maybe more like, yeah.
Yeah, good sized team.
People, yeah,
Good
when you
sized
pull
team.
them all together, yeah.
And the next objective is also in our current plan, provide readers advisory training to all staff. And objective D is a new one that we added this year, plan monthly display of materials, create themed material displays in strategic areas. That includes the reference area, the young adult area, the circ desk, and of course children's room.
What would be an example of that, of a theme?
Currently, I think it's Halloween themed
Okay.
books in the
Okay,
children's room.
okay.
It could be
So
whatever,
it's-
Women's
Health
History
shop.
Month.
It's not the same theme
No,
throughout the library?
no.
Right.
Okay.
No. The next objective is also the same as the current one, as in the current plan. It says collections and weed and build specific topic areas as needed. weeding of the collections is as important as acquiring new stuff, so that is an ongoing task. There's just one new bullet point in there, that is reinstate circulating early literacy backpacks. The children's staff wanted that. They used to have these early literacy backpacks, which I think we stopped when we moved back to this building. So they want to start compiling those and circulating them.
What goes into a backpack?
This would be early literacy, so
I think it's topic driven, numbers, would have all kinds of manipulatives on numbers, books, music, all kinds of games and things around a single topic that is important in early literacy.
So would these be out on a shelf and people could select the ones that they wanted?
did it, I forget if
These the big black backpacks that were
No, those
stored in
were
the
the-
back room?
Oh,
no,
those
those
were
were the Discovery Kids.
the Discovery
right?
Kids, these are smaller.
Sorry.
They were out in public, weren't they?
Mhm.
Yeah, we were hanging them out with the public. They're like truly little,
Yes.
little
Yeah.
children's
Very
backpacks
sweet.
with
Yes.
decorative on,
Yeah.
decorative
We'll
items
have
on
to
it.
figure out how we're going to
Yeah.
be displaying them, whether
Right.
we'll just have the information, or sometimes, you have the blank kit or something. If it's a DVD that we don't want people to be, walking away with, you just keep a dummy case.
Yeah.
So something like that, maybe. We haven't decided.
And do we have those backpacks still, or do we have to start
We'll have
from
to
scratch?
purchase, we'll have
Yeah.
to start new ones.
Yeah, they get beaten up.
Yeah.
Okay, so weeding in all areas. And then the objective H, provide means for patrons to easily make collection recommendations. We've created this request slip, so we'll continue to provide that for patrons to easily be able to request titles. The next goal is expand formats of collections to maximize access to materials and information. This is also in our current plan, continue to expand ebook collections. The next objective I, is a new one, strengthen collections, build inclusive collections, follow library trends to scope out new formats, continue to evaluate databases that we subscribe to, and provide training for staff on e-resources and e-content. The next service priority is visit a comfortable and welcoming place. Make patrons who visit and use the library feel that it's a place that's pleasant, simple to use, and welcoming. We've retained the same objective, assess noise level norms throughout the building, and if the glass door and the acoustic panels on the stairwell are installed by the end of this fiscal year, then we'd have to look at the quiet room will be quiet. Then we have to see how we designate that group study room in the quiet room. Whether we say it's only for quiet use, it can accommodate 8 people, so we'll have to look into that. Next objective is a new one, make policies easy to understand and user-focused, very important.
Yes.
So we schedule regular review of the policies and integrate public into review process when possible. The next goal is a new one, to make it easy to use and find information on the library website. So we have been, there's a website development team, a group of 4 or 5 librarians from various departments, and they have started discussing, they've started looking at other library websites, and we will be soliciting proposals from web design firms to see if there is an affordable way to have our own website, a functional, user-friendly
Would we
library
go out
website.
of the town,
Yes.
mold into a different kind of
Yes.
content management? Okay.
Yes,
There aren't many libraries that rely on the town website.
right. Yeah, they do have their own, yeah.
So it's a little clunky sometimes. You've got a lot of different uses in the town.
They said they've already spoken with one vendor. This was a group that's on the West Coast, but they do have some East Coast libraries that are using their service, so they're going to be talking to a few others, and then,
Are there some that specialize in libraries?
yes. Yeah, apparently this person who's started this company is a former librarian.
Oh,
Yeah. Good.
Makes sense.
So we'll assess the costs of web hosting and related expenses. Another objective, a new one, is promote virtual reference by adding Ask a Librarian feature on the website. That was a suggestion of our reference librarian, and she said we respond to emails, we answer phone calls. So if we add that feature, it would be helpful to patrons.
would this be like a little live chat feature?
Not sure, I don't think.
We see a lot of those
There
these
are,
days, yeah.
It used to be very popular, instant messaging, but now maybe it would be,
Text-based or something.
They don't
Yeah.
call it instant messaging anymore, but yeah,
Right.
they
Yeah.
call it chat, and I find it very useful, but it's
Right.
usually during working hours that we
yes,
Yeah.
have that happen.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, we would have to specify that. The next service priorities satisfy curiosity, lifelong learning, and goal 5C is the same as the one that we have in our current action plan, just rephrased it a little bit, some of the actions. The next goal is a new one, include more literature and reading-based programs for teens. Our young adult librarian has now been with us for a year, and she's done wonderful programs. She's gauged what the teens want, and she's looking to incorporate more literature and reading-based programs. So these objectives A, B, and C are mainly for teens. Goal 5E is enhance the learning experience of library visits for children and families. This is where I didn't type out the action there. It was continue to acquire and maintain courtyard play equipment. So in the current action plan, we talk about purchasing equipment, toys, and manipulators. So we have all of those. We just, the children's librarian just said, continue to acquire and maintain courtyard play equipment. So I'll add that in the final action plan. The next goal is promote technological and digital literacy among patrons. That's a new one. We are already doing it, but it wasn't mentioned as a goal. So educate patrons in the use of library technology as well as basic computer services. So continue to offer the technology classes on various topics, etc. And the next goal is also a new one, continually provide new technology for patrons to explore. As you can see, the objective is regularly read professional publications, blogs, speak to vendors, attend professional conferences, and learn about new technologies that could be successfully utilized in the library. Regularly curate digital educational resources to ensure they best reflect the needs of the community, and this will be undertaken by the Electronic Resources Librarian and the Acquisitions team. And of course, keep the software updated, etc.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, this goes to the state, doesn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
so this is a requirement of our annual state certification. It is also the basis of any grant funding we might seek through the Board of Library Commissioners or any other state agency, or the federal LSTA grants are all, the requirement is to have an approved strategic plan and action plan in place, but it also forms the basis of our budget request. So we always do the planning in time for the deadline with the Board of Library Commissioners, but then that also ties in well with our budget process. And our new town manager is very interested in strategic planning and developing goals and actions that tie into budget, so we're well prepared to, yeah, handle that, it's good.
So, do we need to approve this tonight?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the action plan?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I think we had like 8 seconds. Okay, facilities and grounds. First thing is the update on the doors for the quiet reading room.
So the facilities division manager has notified Nault Architects of our plans. They have, I think I reported at the last meeting, we did have a meeting. I don't have anything in place from them. Keith Baldinger, the division manager, is going to remind them that it's time for us to get something. I guess there was a delay in setting up the PO. So I expect by the next meeting we'll begin to have some information on those doors.
That'd be great.
Doors and
Then
panels,
it's time
sound
for the,
panels,
yeah, okay. All right, excellent. The other thing is an NRI Youth Club request for a third-party fundraiser.
So I'll ask Priya to present this. She's been working with the young person.
Thank you. This is a high school student named Shreya Gopaladasu, and her NRI stands for Non-Resident Indian, NRI Youth Club. So she wants to raise funds to help with education in India, and she calls the project Plant the Seed of Education. So she wants to be able to get packets of seeds, different varieties of seeds, and terracotta pots, and she have people paint the pots, plant the seeds, and she's hoping to raise funds with that they will purchase the pots. And she wants to do it during the spring break in April. She says she has reached out to the volunteer coordinator at a high school, and quite a few, she will get volunteers from school to help her. So this is her request.
And she would sell them here.
She would sell them here.
And
Yes.
the money that she raises would go where?
It's to India. It says the mission of this organization that she, maybe she and her parents are, I don't know who else is involved in that, the NRI Youth Club. The mission is to further the education of underprivileged children in Indian public schools. So the money will be going to India, apparently.
In terms of timing, we don't have a spring, we do one per quarter according to your policy, so we don't have anything for the spring. We have fall and winter right now. So this would be.
I noticed she had all the tax documents. I was
Yeah.
with that.
That's impressive. People can find them.
So, do I have a motion to?
I move that we approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Or the spring break? She's just one day or during the April vacation holidays? How do we usually do
We
it?
usually do a day or two. I don't know, a whole week. Yeah, I'm working.
Would it be right in the lobby area that they would set up?
She might use the meeting room here, I guess.
Okay.
We'll
She's
have to
planting seeds,
figure
that
out
might
the
work better.
details.
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
better.
They're making pots with them
Yeah.
planting seeds.
Yeah.
Okay, gifts and grants, we have Sunday sponsorships for the 2020 season.
Very pleased to tell you, we have only one Sunday spot in the
Oh,
evening.
wow,
Oh my
that's great.
gosh.
Amazed, and if you'll indulge me, I would like to read our sponsors again.
Mm-hmm.
Last, when I did the press release for the new season, I left off 6 donors by mistake because I was copying the list from the previous press release and I forgot to add any additional names, so I want to make sure I do cover all of the donors. So we have an anonymous gift in memory of John Morrissey, the Shrewsbury Rotary Club, St. Mary's School. They did a fundraiser to support the effort. The Matthews family, who is actually sponsoring this coming Sunday. Harold, or Bill and Jean Stewart, Shrewsbury Education Foundation. The Piccini family. Dean Park, it should be Grill, not Gill. Dean Park Grill and Pizza, I gotta check that. David and Kathleen Rochelow, Jeffrey and Priscilla Billingham, The Delgado grandchildren, including Drea, Dylan, and Devin. Dr. Dale and Mrs. Melanie McGee sponsoring 5 Sundays. In memory of Dr. John P. Collins from the Collins family. Olivia Pegg and Dawn Harbert sponsoring 2 Sundays. In anonymous donation in memory of James Heedles. In loving memory of Bucky Summers from Jay Summers. Central One Federal Credit Union. Providing 3 Sundays is Daniels Insurance Agency, a longtime supporter. A gift from Maureen Fujimori in honor of Eileen Mooney Evans, her mother, a lover of family, friends, books, and life. Pam Osborne in memory of Harry Dur Harutunian. Selectman Beth Cassavant. Pat Silvestri in memory of Elizabeth Woodring. The Olive and Anthony Bogardi Jr. Donor Advised Fund of Greater Worcester, providing funding for 2 Sundays. And then another gift in memory of Dr. John P. Collins, this time from John P. Collins and Nancy Hughes. So there is only 1 Sunday left, and I'm sure that we will fill that by the end of the season. So that's just.
And in case someone's listening would want to contribute, what is the cost?
The cost is $700 for a Sunday sponsorship.
Yeah. Big thanks to everyone for
Yes,
what they're
absolutely.
doing. It's great.
We are the envy of many libraries, I can tell you that, wow, you get sponsorships to have your Sunday hours?
So next we have policy, and we have an okay. You want to do the meeting room use first?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So, in light of some experiences we've had, we'd like to add item 17, which says that when a group has booked the entire room, meaning both sides of this room, that the divider remains static throughout the meeting, whether it's open or closed, that we will, if a group if a group has booked the entire room, that we will not be changing it back and forth. We had a recent booking where our custodian moved it like, I guess it was 4 or 5 times within the length of an hour and a half. And that's, I think.
Is that by request to the people with the program?
Yes, and so I wanted to make it clear in the policy when people are
Yeah.
requested to read this policy, that that's not something we can maintain. Our custodian was pulled away from some other work that she was doing, and I think, we just have to be clear about that. So.
And if they need to divide their activities into, they need to think of a mechanism to have that.
Or just that they can
Yeah.
pull to separate ends of the
Yeah.
room, that kind of thing, yeah. That's a recommendation I would like to make.
Motion to approve that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And the next item for policy has to do with our appropriate library use policy. This is something that comes to you a great deal. In this time, we are requesting changes to our list of actions that are examples of conduct not allowed on library property. We wish to add 2 statements. You do have copies, right? Okay, we wish to add 2 statements. One that says audio or video recording of library patrons without the express permission of each library patron to be recorded would be listed as as a prohibited activity. Audio and video recording in non-public areas, staff-only areas, or confidential service areas, or in a manner that is, that's a typo there, that is disruptive to library activities would also be a prohibited activity. This came about in response to some individual activism that's been going on in libraries, police stations, and other public institutions where people are doing what they're calling First Amendment audits, and they're walking in and video recording staff, public, and so forth. And even though library policies might have prohibited that in some communities or had placed limits on it, they would say that the Constitution allows that, so they would proceed to do that. We asked for clarification from town council on this, so that I would be able to inform our managers and supervisors how to handle this kind of thing. Our previous policy said something to the effect of that it was allowed only as approved in advance by the administration. Stephen Madaus, our town council, has advised that recent court decisions have clarified, as recent as December 2018, have clarified that any town employee is considered a public official, and as such could be recorded secretly or in the open, that they have that as a member of the public walking into this place of public forum, that the person would have the right to tape any employee in any public place in the building, not in staff areas, not in private or confidential areas. He also advised that Mass General Laws does provide for the privacy of library patrons, so that's why it's more clear that library patrons have the right to that privacy. They can waive that right if they wish, but they have to do so to the person wishing to tape them. The other thing that he has recommended to us, that in addition to a policy change that clarifies this question, is also signage that states where staff-only areas are, where we might have confidential service areas, for instance, at a reference desk where people might be conversing, trying to find information that could be considered confidential, which all public library use is considered confidential by law. So that should have a sign that says confidential service area, so that those are defined more clearly and we could block that kind of taping. This is the two changes we're recommending, and that would come with some implementation of training for managers and supervisors so that they understand what our responsibilities are.
Have we had this experience?
We have not here in Shrewsbury. There have been cases in Massachusetts and Vermont. It's kind of pretty aggressive kind of behavior. Yeah. So I felt it was smart to be prepared. I don't like to leave especially my evening and weekend supervisors without the right guidance. And also, the question of the taping and recording, audio and video taping of public officials is such a new issue. And town council has advised us that this may this is being contested, so this may change as time goes on, but that is his best recommendation at this point.
Okay. Sounds reasonable. These sound like reasonable changes to me. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Can I bring up something that, another item that's on this list? It's not numbered.
Oh,
but
on the appropriate use?
Yeah,
Okay.
halfway down, bringing animals into the library.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if any of you others follow
Yes, it's been making.
the forum,
Yeah.
and I was kind of glad to see this, that we have this in print, because apparently, for those of you who don't look at the forum,
I'm sorry, the forum on what?
the forum on trustee forum, excuse me.
Oh, the trustee
As
first, yeah.
part of the NBLC program, that many libraries actually encourage patrons to bring their dogs into the libraries. And I just think it's ill-advised, the whole thing. Because people are bringing animals on airplanes, into stores. I saw a guy bring a German Shepherd into Home Depot one day. It's so many liabilities involved, and I just think it's great that we have that.
So many people have the service animal designation
Well,
right now,
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Um,
but a
or
lot of them
therapy.
don't too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just to clarify, however, this is a bit of a difficult interaction, because by law, we can only ask, is this animal a service dog? And is this animal serving some disability, for some need? I have to get the exact language. What I have advised staff is only ask, is this a service dog? We don't need to know what the disability is.
Right.
You can do no further. You cannot say, please show me a certification. You cannot say, where was the dog trained? You can do nothing further. So it depends on someone, the integrity of the person answering that question. And I have had a couple cases where we've asked, and then there's not much you can do beyond that. Now, if there was a problem with the animal in terms of behavior, you could then act upon it,
Right.
but it's not something we encounter a tremendous amount.
No.
I mean, we do bring service dogs in for our reading
Right.
program
Yeah.
on Saturday mornings,
Right.
and we also,
Which Nancy did
for,
years ago.
yes, right, we also bring service dogs in for our memory cafe periodically.
Mhm.
I think most of the responders to that forum were, you know, yes, you know, we have a patron who comes in with their dog in arms just to pick something up and then,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Yeah,
but I think most of them were erring on the side of caution in terms of liability, so.
But they brought up some good points, you know, not all
Yes.
people like dogs.
Or there's
Some of
allergies.
There
Some
are
of our
people with
fighters,
allergies,
right.
yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
some children.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure we all like dogs, but there's a place for them.
Maybe not.
One lady,
three.
the lady that you were referring to, Nancy, she brought her dog in, and she was asked, is it a service dog? And she said, yes, but then come to find out, the dog hadn't been trained yet. She
Right.
says, I'm gonna have it
I'm
trained.
gonna have it trained, right?
Oh,
yeah, it does present, I mean, not just for libraries, any public places, you know,
Yes.
you read about
For
the
sure.
airlines having problems with this question.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a shame
Stores.
because there's a true need for people to have their dogs. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
when it gets abused, it makes it a little harder on everyone, but,
Mm,
you know.
okay.
and
So it's in
service
there,
peacocks these days.
I said it's in there, but.
Service
Yeah.
peacocks
Well,
these
I'm
days.
glad, I'm glad it is, you know,
All right,
if
so,
someone pushes the issue, we have,
Yeah. It's been thought about.
so let's move on to personnel, and I'd like to hear Kevin and his search committee have been working, and you want to give us an idea of how the
Yep,
progress has
the
been?
committee met a few weeks ago for the first time and had a very productive meeting. The position has been posted in a variety of different locations, and we have gotten applications. So right now, we are in the process of reviewing the applications individually. And Christina has set up a matrix response form, like a Excel spreadsheet type of format, where we can put in our own comments on each of the applicants, identifying if they have the minimum requirements that the committee has set, and then provide our own individual comments. At this point, all of that is being done as the applications are coming in and being done individually. So no one on the committee is in conversation with anybody else on the committee. On November 18th, we have our next meeting, and at that point, we will be discussing the individuals who have applied. And depending on the quality of the applicants, the number of applicants, the committee at that point will make a decision about what the next step will be. Our expectation is that we will most likely have a two-step interview process, with the first likely being an electronic Skype interview with the committee. And then from that experience, we will identify the finalists. And that will be at that point, when we do bring the finalists in, it will be an open.
When you go down to a certain
When we go
number
down to-
of
when we
finalists,
get to the
yes, you will
finalists, that discussion
be an
will be an
open
open
meeting.
meeting.
Well, all your meetings will be open meetings, but you go into executive session.
We go into executive session,
until you
right,
reach
right,
that
yes,
finalist.
yes.
Should clarify that, right?
Yes.
It's
Sorry.
it's only two, isn't it, two
I
candidates?
think it's two, but
Yeah.
I haven't really read it specifically for a while, but I know
Yeah.
Christina is a great
Yeah.
What a
advisor.
great asset for
Oh.
the
Oh,
search.
yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Mm.
I've heard some great commentary from colleagues about the brochure that was
Yep.
produced. I thought that was
Yep.
really pretty
Yeah,
helpful.
Christina has been an absolutely wonderful resource for the search committee. She's has been terrific, a
Yes.
terrific help. So we are moving forward on that.
Well, thank you all of you for all the time and effort you're putting into it, and we don't know how we're gonna find a replacement for Ellen.
Well,
The cloning machine has.
Yeah,
Oh, good, we got that going.
my mother used to say, if you die tomorrow, they'll go on without you.
That sounds like
That's all, figure a way.
That was a better day she had.
Yeah, that
tough realism.
was- Oh, she was tough.
Okay, and our second personnel item is there's a new town classification and compensation study going on, which I assume is town-wide. And
Yes, that's
which is part
correct.
of it,
It's
yeah.
a study contracted for by the Personnel Board of all non-union employees to look at compensation. What is the amount being paid and the classification? Where in the salary structure is each position? So these were considered in terms of internal equity as well as marketability, in the region, in like positions. So internal and external considerations were made. And it took, I don't know, a couple months at least, right? A couple months. Each employee had to fill out a extensive questionnaire. Many employees were interviewed. I'd say probably about 40% were interviewed. And the report was released, I guess, a month and a half ago, and there are many changes being recommended. 4 positions, the consultants recommended receive immediate attention because they were the most, there was the most concern about equity for those positions. 2 of them, they recommended changes October 1st, and those were implemented October 1st, and they were the tech assistant. So that's that position that used to be the part-time position coming up. Then the head of children's services. Those 2 positions were recommended for changes October 1st, and that was implemented. Then again, in the same fiscal year we're in, fiscal year 22 other positions were asked to be considered for changes, and that's the young adult librarian and the reference librarian. And those will see increases in January 1st. But I hope you might have had a chance to look over the chart, the table that's in the report. Table 2, let me see if it has a pagination, it really doesn't. 32, maybe it's page 33, I'm not sure. Let's see, it's the second to the last page, I guess. You'll note that what they've done, just to give you a little background, is how this is set up. You have the position title first. The skill range comes from that questionnaire that was done that gave each position the number of points related to experience, educational requirements, supervision requirements, and so forth. The current grade, meaning where the person sits on the current structure, the current personnel structure. The new proposed grade, and then the salary survey data. So the fiscal year 2019, 55th percentile, and then the existing Shrewsbury range. So the salary data is, what was the salary that exists for those like positions elsewhere? And then that second to the last grouping, the Shrewsbury salary range, is what are the positions right now in this current fiscal year? And the very last page is, what is the proposed salary range that would be appropriate? So if you see there, let me go, actually, I'm missing a page, I just realized. Oh no, I'm not, here it is. So if you look, you'll see the library director position goes from a recommendation of, current range is 88 to 106, we're recommending 84 to 118. Go down to the assistant director, further down under supervisors and advanced technical staff. The current range 58 to 69, going from 67 to 91. Moving further down under the new grade 5, the young adult librarian, going from 4756 to 5168. Library associates, those are our professional staff like reference librarians, technology, electronic resources librarian, our professional children's librarians, also going in that new range of 51 to 68. Library technology specialist, you can see that the current range was 40 to 47. The new range recommend is 48 to 62. Down under senior library assistant, you'll see from the current range is 40 to 47, going from 45 to 58. So what is not determined, I listed those 4 positions that saw some change this fiscal year. What's not exactly determined is what steps are taken to get employees into that range. There is some description in the report, or recommendation in the report, that no one essentially be placed lower than their current salary, that they start at the bottom of the range. But how does that get implemented? How many years does it take to implement the new range? And then there's also a recommendation in the report for kind of a hybrid system of the standard municipal kind of structure, where after so many years you go up a grade, and more based on years of service, with a more merit-based system. So in the report, they're recommending that in the beginning years of employ, that employee move through the grades on a regular standard years of service kind of model. But as they get to the upper level, upper years of service, or upper stage grades, upper steps of that grade, that a merit system be implemented in the upper steps, which I think makes great sense, because you're talking about more complex responsibilities and that kind of thing. So how that all gets worked out, I don't know. But I will say, from a hiring perspective, we experienced problems with hiring a reference librarian, hiring head of children's. We really struggled we were very fortunate to attract the people we did, but we went out for a bit. Some of you who were on those hiring committees will remember. So I feel like these ranges they're suggesting make much more sense in terms of competition in this area.
And hopefully reduce turnover.
And hopefully reduce turnover, a really good point. How they get there and how quickly they get there will be the part of it, because what's recommended here is what's fiscal year 19. So if it takes 5 years to get there, the value of that diminishes a bit. But so I have no information on that to give you, other than the 4 positions that I described for you. And I think that there was some consideration in that in terms of the posting for the director position, that range was healthier, which will be an advantage for hiring.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on with how the town's doing personnel.
Right. So I was pleased with the study. I will tell you that they are now beginning, so these were only the full-time employees. They are now beginning the study of the part-time employees. And as you know, we have a tremendous amount of part-time employees. So I did speak with Christina, the personnel director, and she agreed that we could, in some categories, like our library pages, do a sampling, have 2 or 3 pages fill out those for the others, so that we're rating the position, not each and every person filling out the form, because it would be very difficult, and our Sunday staff and so forth.
Right.
So that form has gone out to all the employees. I hope that I need to take that questionnaire. What happens, it then comes back to me for my review in case there's any commentary I want to add, and then goes to the personnel board for their consideration. So I don't know what will happen with that. I did emphasize in the very beginning that we have part-timers who perform the same work as our full-time positions. So as you know, we have some full-time positions at the current A3 grade, and we have some part-time positions at the current A3 grade. So I'm hoping that they are, that they're aware of that need to be fair there.
Ellen, what's the difference between the library professional associate and library associate?
where are you looking at? Just wanna make sure
I'm in
getting-
table 2, page 33, I guess.
So, the library professional associates are the division manager, the department managers.
Okay.
So head of children's services, head of technical services. The library associate would be the people who are professional librarians but are not managing departments. So, electronic resources librarian, children's librarian, reference librarian, that kind of thing. So I was pleased with the overall outcome of the recommendations.
Yeah, good to know.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe we'll move on to the, we don't need to vote on anything.
No,
obviously. Friends of the Library, an update.
The holiday open house coming up, December 7th. It's slightly different time to kind of coordinate with the Yuletide market that's being planned by the Town Center Association. The holiday open house runs on Saturday, December 7th from 1 to 3:30. Santa is scheduled for 3:30. Pictures with Santa, crafts, food, a little, what do you call it, like a tag seal of Christmas items. I feel like I'm missing something, games and prizes. It's a wonderful event that attracts a lot of people. So. And free, all for free.
And then the Yuletide market.
Right, and just kind of using this opportunity to mention the Shrewsbury Town Center Association is hosting its first Yuletide market on the same Saturday, December 7th. It's an outdoor market based on the European Christmas market theme. It will take place from 4 to 8 p.m. It will kick off with a lighting of the town common. It will include food trucks, artisan vendors, and I'm trying to think of the name of it, a good brew from Worcester. It will include music and the firefighters doing chili in addition to the food trucks. The Boy Scouts doing hot chocolate and cider and cookies.
Is it on the common?
It's on the Chiampa property, the rear,
Oh, okay.
if you've ever been on the
Yeah.
back property there, so
Yeah.
the whole Chiampa property, the food trucks will be around the edges, artisan vendors along the straight line as you're going into the property. The lighting will take place on the common.
Oh my God.
So that will be very exciting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work going into that. So I really commend Moira Miller and Maribeth Lynch and the other team group who is working on that. It's a fun project.
And we all need to pray for good weather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and those two things don't conflict, which is nice.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sure that.
It was
Parking
planned.
spaces.
Yeah, that's,
The
yeah.
library party is an old tradition by now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anybody have any other business? Okay, well then maybe, then our next meeting is scheduled for November 26th, 2019. It's 2 days before Thanksgiving, which I think is the latest it can possibly be.
No.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. See you on November 26th.